Welcome back to African Air Ordnance. Today, back with the Raider in 5mm. We're going to be tearing it down, going to install some new O-rings, and then we're going to go and take it out to the range and we'll test it out at 45 yards. So stay tuned for that. Alright guys, now we've got the scope of the Webley Raider. First thing we want to do is remove the suppressor. So we're just going to put the rifle up like this, hold it like that. Just going to screw the suppressor off. Right. Next thing we're going to do is we want to remove the stock screws, stock retaining screws. Okay. So it's interesting, this rifle is over 20 years old. So it's not a new rifle. Just going to put the screw. Okay. Remove the back one. Okay. Just like that. And then what we'll do is we'll separate the stock from the action. So this sometimes can take a bit of effort. There's very, very tight fitting stocks. Alright, so there the stock has been removed. Next thing we want to do is we actually want to release the air. We can see there's still some air in here. So we just want to bleed it out. So just take a little shifting spanner. Okay, and then we're going to bleed this out. Alright, so now the air is bled out. What we want to do is, before we do anything else, we want to tighten this back down. Also, when we go to reassemble, alright, nice and snug. Okay, so that's done. Next one we do is we want to actually bring the rifle over here, the action here. We want to remove this end cap assembly here. Okay, this is quite tight. Okay, let's just loosen these first. There's 3 of them that hold on this end cap. Okay, just like that. And then we're just going to go ahead and remove this. There's one. Hold this at an angle so then you guys can see it better. 2 and 3. Alright, so the next hard part or difficult part of this is to remove this end cap here. So just like that, it slides out. Alright, now that we've managed to pull us out this far, let's get the rest of it out. So let's take this, we're going to place this over there. The next thing we want to do is we want to actually remove the action or the top of the receiver block off right here. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to cock it back and we're just going to put it down onto the safety, or the bolt open I should say. And then we're going to remove a little screw that's actually, hopefully you can see it, it's actually right in here. Okay, I'm just going to remove this little screw, we're going to drop it out. Okay, so that's one of the little receiver retaining screws. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put this back in the closed position. Alright, next there's another screw in the back here. Okay, we just got to locate it, right? So it's very important that when you separate these two parts is that you have to hold them together and flip them over, because there's a little lever system inside the receiver block, and that can fall out. And alright, so there's the other screw there. I'm just going to put that over there. Alright, so I'm going to put this upside down again. I can simply just pull the air tube off the receiver block. And this is actually the little piece that I'm talking about right here that can drop out. And then if you put it back in the wrong place, then what happens is the rifle doesn't seal together correctly. And so you start off getting blow past from where your transfer port is. So this is your little transfer port here, okay, and there's a little O-ring that sits on the top here, that actually sits in there, that creates a seal between the receiver block and the valve body assembly. Alright, so let's just take, again, there's your little transfer port, okay, and we're just going to put that over there. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is we want to separate these two parts, because we want to get into this tube here to get to the O-ring that is on the valve body. So what we're going to do is just going to undo this guy here. Alright, so we're just literally unscrewing this guy right here. Alright, so we put this over there again. Alright, so here the two parts come up, like they separate. Okay, so this was just a trigger retaining pin that is just dropped out of place. So it's just like that. Alright. Alright, so now that we have the air tube out, we're just going to remove the valve body from the main air tube. Alright. Alright, so there's the air tube. So the O-ring we want to replace today is we want to replace this O-ring here, just there, okay, as well as on the end piece we want to replace this O-ring right over here. Okay. So I came prepared. I've got my spare O-rings. Let's take two of these guys out because we're going to need two. Okay. Set that aside. Right, next we're just going to replace the O-ring. And the best thing is to use an O-ring hook for this. And we just simply put it on like that. Let's just take a bit of silicone grease, just like that, and then all we're going to do is we're simply going to screw this back in to the air tube. Alright guys, now that we've got it almost all the way screwed and we're trying to make sure it's lined up, we're going to line up that align with that hole. Okay, so we're just going to turn this like this. I just want to make sure it's kind of close. Alright, so now it's lined up. Next thing we're going to do is we want to reinstall the hammer housing. So the best way to do this is to actually cock it and just put it into the safe position right there. Alright, and then we're just going to mate these two guys up here nicely. Okay, and we're going to reinsert the screw back into this hole. Just to make sure this is out. Okay, now alright, so we're just gonna, I'll just turn it this way, and we'll just hand tighten this, and then hand tighten that. Okay, and then we just, again, there's two sort of aiming points here that we just, before we do final assembly, just make sure that those two are perfectly aligned. Alright, okay, so that's the first major O-ring that needed to be replaced. Alright, the next O-ring that needs to be replaced is on the air tube end cap assembly. It's this O-ring that sits right here, and again we're just going to take our O-ring hook and just gonna wind it down. Let's get rid of that O-ring, and there's the other old one, and we're just gonna put in our new one. Okay, these are 90 short O-rings for this particular rifle. Okay, nitrile, so they are a bit on the difficult side to get on. Okay, but there you go. So that's on. Again, I'm going to put some lube, silicone grease. It also helps making it easier to get these new O-rings in because it is a very, very tight fit. Alright, so that's how you install that O-ring. how this rifle feels is there's actually a little one-way valve that sits inside here, okay, and has a little O-ring that seals it. And then when you put your probe in, you stick a probe in over there and fill the rifle. And the pressure pushes the valve open, and then the pressure on the inside, when you suddenly release, pushes that valve closed, so it just pops closed. Very, very simple design, but very nice. So now we have our new O-ring. Alright guys, next thing we're going to do is we want to mate up the receiver block with the hammer housing and the air tube. The best way to do this is to cock the hammer back, put it on safe. The next thing we want to do is we want to line these two up. Let's see if we can get them on first go. Alright, so there, I was lucky I got it in sort of, sometimes you do battle with it just to line it up, but now I've got the two together. First thing we're going to do is we want to get a screw in this, so we want to do this front one, so we've got to drop that in, okay, and then we just want to drop this retaining screw. Alright, so we dropped the screw in, and now we're just going to screw this back, just quickly like this. Okay. And again, this you don't tighten, you don't crank it down until you've got the back screw in. Okay, so you just tighten it just like that. So if you guys can see the screw is right in there. Okay. Next thing we've got to get the back one, and then this is a bit more tricky to get in. So what we do is we try and insert it this way, and then what is key is to actually push this. Show you guys. It's just to push this back block in, because if you don't push it in, then that screw hole is not going to align. Okay, and then we just want to screw this down. Okay, this one we want to snug up quite nicely. Okay, so now that we've snugged that one up, we'll cock it back just like that, and we'll snug this front one up just like that. Alright, so another thing you gotta be careful of is the pins for the trigger. They do tend to drop out one way, so if it does drop out on you, just go ahead and simply push it back in. Alright, so alright guys, that's how you mate up the receiver block with the hammer housing. Next we're going to install the air tube end cap assembly, and that's simply just going to slide over and slide in. But this can be quite difficult to get in, so, and we just want to push this an O-ring that secures the barrel. So the O-ring that secures the barrel, and we just want to push this all the way in just like that, and then we want to make sure it's aligned for the retaining screws. So we're just going to take a retaining screw right here. Alright, now that we have that in, next thing we want to do is we want to insert one of these little retaining nuts into the... Okay, get it started, and then we can just go ahead and screw it in just like that. Okay, so this again, we don't want to over tighten this guy. Once we get him in, let's give it just a little bit like that. Okay, we can flip this over now, and we can insert the next one. So guys, as you can see, this rifle is very, very, very basic. And there's the only main seals on this rifle. There's two, one on the valve body and one on the air tube end cap assembly. Alright, let's just do the last one under here. So very, 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 overall very simple rifle to work on. And then I'm just going to screw the suppressor back on. Okay. Alright. Alright, so the suppressor screwed back on. So that's pretty much how you would do a service on this rifle. Very, very, very simple rifle to work on. Alright guys, now you've seen how we've reassembled everything. Okay, next thing we want to do is we want to put the stock back on. Alright, so it's quite a simple process. We just want to stocks actually fit incredibly tightly onto this action. So the longer screw goes in the back, okay, and the shorter one goes up front. And then we simply just go into, simply just going to screw these guys in, okay, just like that, so you guys can see. Again, never over tighten. Once you bottom out, a quarter turn, and that's really all you need to do. So again, screwing that right in there. Okay. Alright guys, so there you've seen how to disassemble the radar so that you can place the main air tube and valve O-rings. Next thing, we'll put a scope on it, we'll head to the range, and we'll shoot it out 45 yards this time, see what it's like. Stay tuned for that. Alright guys, now that we have the radar reassembled, I have the scope installed. Let's head to the range. We're going to shoot out at 45 yards. We've got two targets. Going to be shooting some JSB, 13.75 grain. And we're going to shoot 5 shots at each target. We're going to do 2 targets. We're going to be shooting at 45 yards. We're also going to see what the shot string is like now that we've serviced the rifle. And we'll also see what the accuracy is like. So stay tuned for that. Alright, so there you have target number 1. Very impressed with that group size at 45 yards with the JSB pellets. And the numbers were looking pretty good as well. Alright, let's have a look at target number 2. Okay guys, so target number 2, again, very nice group for 45 yards, especially coming with those light JSB 13.75 grain Diablo pellets, and the numbers were looking pretty good. Again guys, just a reminder, this rifle is unregulated and we only got 200 cc's of air capacity for the rifle, and we're only filling to 190 bar. So I'm very impressed with those numbers. And we did see a bell curve going on, and that's to be expected, especially from an unregulated PCP. And guys, this rifle is 20 years old, but wow, the accuracy is just excellent. Alright guys, so there you have it. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great day.